This is Chapter 10, Lesson 2, Guided Practice, Savings and Investments. It says calculate the interest earned on the deposits. $2,000 deposit, simple interest at 6% for 2 years. Okay, we want to know how much interest is being earned. So you would actually go to your formula chart or your reference chart, and you would look for simple interest, which is right here. It's at the very bottom of your reference chart. And this is the formula you would use. I equals PRT. Once you write down your formula, you're going to replace the variables with numbers. The P stands for the principal deposit, which in this case is $2,000. The R stands for the rate, which is 6%. I'm going to go ahead and change that to a decimal, so you would move the decimal over 2 places to the left. Gives you 0.06. And then you're going to multiply that by the time, how much time it's going to be in the bank or in the account. 2 years. Alright, just put that in your calculator and you'll get yourself an answer. You should get $240. It's asking for the interest, so that would be your answer. You do need to be careful. Sometimes, I think on the CFA, it didn't ask for the interest. It asked how much was in the account. So if they do that on the STAR test, if they ask you how much is in the account, make sure you add the $2,000 and the $240, where your answer would be $2,240. Number 2 is a $2,000 deposit, compound interest, compounded monthly at 6% for 2 years. Okay, when it says compound interest, you're obviously going to use the formula for compound interest, which is in your reference chart. I think it's the last thing on your reference chart. A equals P and then 1 plus R to the T power. Just to let you know, the real formula is A equals principal 1 plus R, and then it should have an N under it, and then it should have an N here. Now, because the state is giving us this formula, we are going to go ahead and just use this formula. I'm hoping that it's okay. I've used both formulas and the answers only come out about a $10 difference, if that. So I think we should be okay. I think it's safer to use the formula that's given than to use the actually correct formula that's in your book as well. Okay, go ahead and write the formula. Replace the variables with your numbers. The principal is $2,000. Then you're going to have 1 plus the rate, which for this problem is 6%. Remember, you're going to change that to a decimal. And then you're going to multiply that by the time. And for this problem, the time is 2 years. So you're just going to use a little x2 on your calculator. And go ahead and put that in your calculator and get yourself an answer. Okay, so the total amount comes out to $2,000, $2,247.20. Again, be careful with the wording on these questions, because if it asks for the interest, that's not the interest. That's how much you're getting all together. So what you would do to get the interest is subtract it from the 2,000. So if you started off with 2,000 and you subtract 2,000 from this number, that would mean your interest is only $247.20. So again, be very careful with what the question is asking for. For this one, it's asking for the interest only, so it's $247. Had it asked how much is in the account after the 2 years, then your answer would be $2,247.20. Number 3 wants the simple interest, so you're going to use the formula I equals PRT. Write down the formula first, then replace the variables with numbers. Your principal is $5,000. Your rate is 8%. Change it to a decimal. And your time is 3 years. Type that in the calculator and it's going to give you your answer. Okay, so your interest should be $1,200. Again, if it asks how much is in the account, then your answer would have been $6,200. Okay, number 4, you have the principal is $5,000. The rate was 6%, and the time is 3 years. Replace the variables with numbers, put it in the calculator, and it should give you $5,955.08. Remember, it's just asking for the interest. So if this was the STAR test and it was asking for the interest only, you would subtract the $5,000 from this answer, and your answer would be $955.08. Number 5 is asking for the simple interest, so you're going to write the formula I equals PRT. Your principal is the $7,000. Your rate is, when you move the decimal over 2 times, it becomes 0.0475. And then your time is 5 years. Try to remember anytime you replace a variable with numbers, you always put it in parentheses. Alrighty, go ahead and put that in the calculator. It should give you $1,622.50. Number 6 is asking for the compound interest, so you're going to use this formula. Replace the variables with numbers. Go ahead and put it in the calculator. I'm sorry, I just realized this formula is wrong. It's not an I, because it's not giving you the interest. It's giving you the total amount that's in the bank. So there's an A. Alrighty, it's going to give you $8,828 and about 12 cents. Remember, because it's only asking for the interest, you are not going to put that as your answer. You're going to subtract the $7,000 from that answer, and it should give you $1,828.12. Number 7 is compound interest. Go ahead and write down your formula, replace the variables with numbers, and then put in the calculator. Okay, that should give you $1,050. But don't forget, it's only asking for the interest, so you got to get rid of or subtract 1,000 from that final answer, which means the interest is only $50. Okay, for number 8, they want us to calculate the difference between the 2 types of interest. It says to write the answer in the form of the compound interest amount minus the simple interest amount, and that's going to equal the amount of difference. Number 8 says find the difference between simple interest and compound interest compounded weekly on a deposit of $3,000 that earns 4.5% interest for 5 years. So basically what we're doing is we're using both formulas. We're going to get the answers to the 2, get the interest for both, and then subtract them. Okay, for 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, I'm not going to make you write down the full formula again, but I do want you to write down what you're putting in the calculator to get the answers. So for the compound interest, you're putting the 3,000 and the 1 plus 0.045 to the 5th power. And then for the simple interest, you're putting in the 3,000 times 0.045 times 5. Okay, again, be very careful with the verbiage or the words that are in the question. For this one, it wants the compound interest amount. So the $3,738 is not the interest amount. That's how much it is altogether. So make sure you remember to subtract how much you started off with, which is the $3,000. And the remaining balance is what the interest is. So it's $738.55. And then subtract the $675, which is the simple interest. Right there. And then that's going to give you the amount of difference. Okay, your answer ends up being $63.55. Okay, go ahead and do the compound interest, which is the one on the left, and then the simple interest, which is the one on the right. All right, so the compound interest ends up being $740.17. The simple interest ends up being $520. Subtract the 2 and it gives you $220.17. Okay, for number 10, you have $8,000 as your principal, 5% is your interest rate, and 6 years is your time. I replace the variables with numbers. The compound formula is on the left. Simple interest is on the right. Go ahead and put them in your calculator, and then subtract the 2 answers. Okay, remember to get the interest only, you're having to subtract the $8,000 that you started off with. That should give you $2,720.77. And we want to know the difference between the two, so we're going to subtract it from the $2,400. And it should give you $320.77. Okay, we got the total with the compound interest for $16,422.83. Subtracted that from the original balance. Gave us the interest amount of $4,422.83. Subtracted that from the simple interest, which was the $3,840. The difference between the two is $582.83. Okay, I think I've done enough with you that you should be able to handle number 12 on your own. Once you're done, go ahead and flip it over and do the independent practice on your own.